My name is Caroline. I'm 34 from Brighton, UK. I always thought my best friend, Amelia, was like a sister to me. She stood beside me at my wedding, held my first baby, and spent countless nights sharing secrets over wine. But nothing prepared me for the night I found out she was sharing something else too, my husband's bed. The betrayal was so sharp it felt like my heart had been ripped out. How could two people I loved the most carve such deep scars into my life? This is the story of love, lies, and unforgivable betrayal. Stay until the end. You won't believe the shocking revenge that turned their world upside down. Caroline had always believed her life, though not perfect, was stable. Married to Jonathan for nearly 10 years, she had built a home filled with laughter, 2 children, and a sense of security that seemed unshakable. And then there was Amelia, her best friend since university days, the woman she trusted more than anyone outside her family. Caroline never imagined that the person she considered her sister in all but blood could be the very one to betray her. The unraveling began with little things, as betrayals often do. Jonathan, usually glued to his phone for work, became more secretive, tilting the screen away when she walked into the room. He stayed late more often, claiming endless deadlines. Amelia, too, began to act strangely. She canceled their usual coffee mornings, gave vague excuses, and looked uneasy when Jonathan's name came up. Caroline, blinded by loyalty, dismissed the signs. She told herself they were coincidences. Amelia had her own life, Jonathan had his job, but the gnawing doubt burrowed deeper into her mind. The breaking point came on a rainy Saturday evening. Jonathan had gone out, claiming a late client dinner. Caroline decided to surprise Amelia with wine and comfort food, hoping to revive their fatting connection. But when she reached Amelia's apartment, what she saw through the half-drawn curtains shattered her. Jonathan was there, his hands tangled in Amelia's hair, their bodies pressed too close for any innocent explanation. The wine bottle slipped from Caroline's hands, shattering on the pavement, its crimson liquid spilling like blood. She stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. The betrayal wasn't a story in a novel or a scandal on the news. It was her life, imploding before her eyes. For hours she sat in her car, drenched in tears and rain, unable to drive, unable to think. The images replayed endlessly, each time cutting deeper. How could Amelia do this? How could Jonathan risk everything? She thought of her children, their bedtime stories, the family photos on the mantelpiece, all now tainted with lies. The next morning, Jonathan returned home, smelling faintly of Amelia's perfume, though he claimed he'd been at the office. Caroline said nothing. She watched him, studied the man she thought she knew, and realized she no longer recognized him. That evening she confronted Amelia, unable to hold the storm inside. "Tell me it's not true," she demanded, her voice trembling, her eyes burning. Amelia's silence was the only answer Caroline needed. The friendship, the trust, the years, they all dissolved in that suffocating silence. Caroline walked away from Amelia's apartment, each step heavy with rage and grief. But in her chest, amid the shards of her broken heart, something else was forming, an iron-hard resolve. They thought they could betray her in secret, that she would crumble and fade. But they didn't know what kind of woman Caroline truly was. Beneath the grief burned a fire that would soon consume them both. She would bide her time, gather her strength, and when the moment came, she would deliver a revenge so devastating, neither Jonathan nor Amelia would ever forget it. Caroline's world had ended that night, but in the ruins, a new version of herself was born, fierce, relentless, and unbreakable. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Noah's hands resting on my sister Emily's shoulder, that stolen smile between them, the intimacy of a secret only they shared. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it would shatter my chest. I wanted to believe it was all a misunderstanding, an innocent touch, a misread glance, but deep down, something inside me already knew the truth. The next morning, I tried to go about my routine as if nothing had changed. I made coffee, scrambled eggs, even kissed Noah goodbye as he left for work. But my hands trembled so badly, I dropped the pan, scattering breakfast across the floor. Emily was supposed to come over later to help me with some planning for my upcoming charity event, but the thought of seeing her made my stomach twist. I needed answers, real ones. That evening, I followed Noah. He said he was working late at the architecture firm, buried in deadlines. But instead of heading downtown, he drove west, toward the quiet suburbs. I kept my distance, my palms slick on the steering wheel. After 20 minutes, he pulled into a small, dimly lit cafe. My heart sank when I saw Emily already waiting at a corner table, her hair tucked neatly behind her ear, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. The way his eyes lit up when he saw her, it wasn't the look of a man greeting his wife's sister. It was the look of a man meeting his secret lover. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to storm inside, scream, demand answers, but my legs froze. Instead, I sat there, gripping the wheel, watching them lean close, whispering, her hand brushing his as if the entire world had disappeared around them. When they finally left, he walked her to her car. The hug they shared was too long, too tender. My chest burned with betrayal. I wanted to throw up. The days that followed were torture. I avoided Emily's calls. I pretended with Noah. But inside, a war was raging. How long had this been going on? Why her? Why my sister of all people? I decided to confront Emily. When she arrived at my house 2 months later, carrying wine and smiling like nothing was wrong, I was sitting in the kitchen. She chatted with a small friend, her job at the marketing agency, a new client, a new relationship. I listened in silence, my hand gripping the stencil glass so tightly I felt like a snake. Finally, I whispered, Emily, are you listening to me? Her smile softened for just a second. Then she laughed it off, flashing it away. Why do you ask? Because I saw it. I can know. Her face remained clear. She set her glass down carefully, too carefully, like any sudden movement might shatter the fragile illusion we were living in. She didn't deny it. That silence was worse than 1,000 confessions. I felt my soul split in two. Finally, she whispered, I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. The words echoed in my skull. Didn't mean for it to happen. Just did. As if destroying my marriage, our family bond, and my trust was some accident, like spilling a drink or missing a call. My hands shook as tears spilled down my cheeks. How long? Emily looked at me, guilt flooding her eyes. Almost a year. A year, 12 months of lies, of stolen glances at family dinners, of excuses and late nights. My husband and my sister, 2 people I loved most in this world, building their own world behind my back. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was stare at her numb. She reached across the table, desperate. Anna, please, don't hate me. I love you, I didn't want to hurt you. But it was too late. The damage was done. That night, I lay awake in bed beside Noah, who slept soundly, oblivious to the storm that was tearing me apart. I watched his chest rise and fall, wondering how many times he had whispered lies into my ear while whispering love to her. I knew one thing, this wasn't over. The truth was out now, and there would be no going back. The only question left was how far I was willing to go to make them both pay. The morning after my confrontation with Emily, I woke up feeling like a stranger in my own life. Noah kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work, the same way he always did, but now it felt poisonous, fake, like venom disguised as affection. I wanted to scream, to shove him away, but I forced a smile instead. Inside, I was unraveling. All day, my phone buzzed with Emily's messages. Please, let's talk. You have to understand, I never wanted this to hurt you. I love you, Anna. Each word cut deeper than the last. I ignored them, my hands shaking too violently to even hold the phone. Every time I saw her name flash on the screen, my chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. That evening, I sat at my desk staring at my wedding photo. Noah's arm around me, both of us laughing like the world belonged to us. I wanted to reach inside that photo and warn the younger me, don't trust him, don't trust her. But the damage was already carved into my reality. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. The betrayal was eating me alive, but part of me wanted to play along, just long enough to understand how deep their lies went. So I began watching. Noah's patterns suddenly stood out like flashing neon signs. His late nights at work grew longer, his excuses thinner, and every time he walked through the door, carrying the scent of a perfume that wasn't mine, I burned a little more inside. One night after he fell asleep, I unlocked his phone. For years, I had trusted him too much to ever look. But now, trust was ash. I scrolled through his messages. Most were harmless work emails. But then I found a folder hidden in an encrypted app disguised as a calculator. My stomach dropped. Inside were messages with Emily. Hundreds of them. Sweet, stolen confessions. Plans for secret getaways. Memories of nights they had shared while I had been home alone, waiting like a fool. One message froze me. I wish I could just be with you, Emily. Anna doesn't understand me like you do. My heart stopped. So not only was he betraying me, he was rewriting our entire marriage as if it meant nothing. I wanted to smash the phone, wake him up, scream in his face. But instead, I quietly slid the phone back onto the nightstand. Because now I had something I hadn't before. Proof. And proof meant power. The next day, I invited Emily to lunch. She looked nervous, fragile, like a deer waiting for the hunter's arrow. We sat across from each other in a crowded restaurant, and for a long moment, I just stared at her. Finally, I leaned in and whispered. I saw the messages. Her fork clattered against the plate. Her eyes widened, her lips trembling as if she'd been caught stealing from her own blood. Anna, please, she began, but I cut her off. Do you love him? I demanded. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't answer, but silence was louder than any confession. The betrayal twisted deeper. I sat back, my heart pounding. You stole not just my husband, Emily. You stole my sisterhood, my trust, my life. People at nearby tables glanced our way, sensing the tension. Emily lowered her head, whispering, I never wanted this to destroy us. But it already had. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every moment in my head. The laughter at family dinners, the hugs at Christmas, the late-night phone calls. All of it poisoned now. By dawn, something inside me had shifted. Grief hardened into something sharper, stronger. Revenge. I realized I didn't just want to confront them. I wanted them to feel what I felt, to taste the same bitterness that was choking me. So I began to plan. It started small. I made notes. I listed weaknesses. Noah's career, his reputation at the firm was everything to him. Emily's ambitions, she had just landed a big client at her marketing agency. Both of them had something to lose. And I would be the one to take it all. As I sat in the quiet of my room, the first rays of sunlight spilling through the curtains, I whispered to myself, You chose this path. Now I'll make sure you regret it. The game had shifted. I was no longer the broken wife or the betrayed sister. I was becoming something else, something far more dangerous. And they had no idea what was coming. The day I decided to act, the world around me looked the same, cars rushing past, neighbors mowing lawns, mothers walking children to school. Yet for me, everything had changed. My life was no longer about survival. It was about strategy. I spent the morning staring at Noah's phone records, cross-checking the times he claimed to be working late with the moments Emily's social media showed her out with friends. The overlap was damning. Lies wrapped in smiles, deceit cloaked in laughter. But I wasn't going to cry anymore. No, I was going to weaponize their secrets. First, I called an old college friend, Samantha. She was a journalist now, sharp and ruthless when it came to uncovering scandals. I didn't tell her everything, not yet, just enough to spark her curiosity. Let's just say I might have a story about a lawyer who isn't as faithful or as ethical as he pretends to be. Her reply was instant. I'm listening. Next, I began gathering evidence. I downloaded their messages, copied photos, and even tracked Noah's GPS when he left for late meetings. Every breadcrumb I collected painted a clearer picture of betrayal, a puzzle only I had the complete pieces for. And then came Emily. I couldn't confront her head-on again. She was slippery, fragile, too easily excused by her own guilt. Instead, I decided to ruin her where it hurt most, her career. Emily had a big presentation coming up for a wealthy client who could either make or break her agency. I knew because she bragged about it at every family gathering. That night when Noah showered, I slipped into his study. I found his laptop where emails synced automatically. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with anticipation. A quick search revealed Emily's presentation draft. Noah had been helping her after hours. My jaw clenched as I read his suggestions, his little notes of encouragement. "You've got this, Em. You're brilliant." Those words used to belong to me. I copied the file onto my own drive, then altered key slides just enough to make her look incompetent. Wrong data, miscalculated figures, misplaced graphs. It was sabotage hidden beneath a flawless facade. By morning, I was calm, eerily calm. Noah kissed my cheek again, completely unaware that the wife he thought was broken was already dismantling his world piece by piece. Later, I arranged a chance meeting with Emily's client. Networking events were easy to slip into, especially when you knew where to look. I introduced myself with a smile, planting subtle seeds of doubt about Emily's professionalism. Nothing too direct, just whispers, just shadows. "She's talented, yes, but sometimes she gets distracted. Personal entanglements, you know how it is." By the time Emily walked into her presentation, her reputation was already under quiet siege. That evening, Noah returned home, beaming. "Big day for Emily," he said casually, pouring himself a drink. "She nailed it." I smiled, sipping my own glass of wine. Not for long, I thought. Because while Emily was celebrating, the storm I had set in motion was gathering speed. Within hours, her client called the agency, furious about inaccuracies in her pitch deck. Panic followed, emails flying, calls unanswered, Emily's voice breaking in desperation as she tried to fix something she couldn't even understand had been sabotaged. Watching from the shadows, I felt a flicker of satisfaction, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Noah was next. He prided himself on his spotless image at the firm. Integrity was his favorite word, the armor he wore to charm judges and colleagues alike. But buried in his phone, I had found enough dirt to shatter that image forever. Late-night drunken texts, questionable billing practices, and of course, the affair with my sister. I crafted an anonymous envelope. Inside, I placed screenshots, receipts, and one damning photo of Noah and Emily together. I mailed it directly to his managing partner. The fuse was lit. That night, as Noah slipped into bed beside me, he whispered, "You've been quiet lately. Is everything okay?" I turned to face him, forcing my lips into the sweetest smile I could muster. "Everything's perfect," I said softly. Inside, I was already counting down the days. Because soon, Noah would learn that the woman he betrayed was no longer his wife. She was H. Caroline woke the next morning with a strange calm. The trap had been set, and every move from here on would be a calculated strike. She had watched Emily crumble at her presentation, and Noah's professional ruin was only a matter of days. But she didn't stop there. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her power, her life, her dignity. She began subtly confronting those around Noah. At his firm, she casually mentioned questions about client ethics, planting doubt without ever showing her hand. Colleagues who had admired him began whispering. Even the senior partners paused, hesitant to assign him critical cases. Caroline watched the whispers grow, knowing the walls were closing in. Meanwhile, Emily's agency continued to spiral. Her big client demanded explanations for errors in the presentation Caroline had carefully sabotaged. Emily's once promising reputation teetered on the edge. Every call she made ended in frustration. Every excuse fell flat. Caroline didn't gloat. She felt a cold satisfaction, the kind that comes from knowing justice, in its own sharp form, had been served. Yet Caroline's plan was far from over. She arranged a private lunch with Emily. The restaurant was quiet, private, and carefully chosen. Emily entered, her eyes wide with fear, guilt etched deep. Caroline smiled, a serene predator in human skin. "Emily," she said softly, "I hope you've been thinking." Emily's lips trembled. "Anna, please, No," Caroline interrupted. "I'm not here to hear excuses. I want understanding. Do you know what it feels like to be utterly betrayed? To see the people you love building their own secret world behind your back?" Emily shook her head, tears forming. I'm sorry. I truly didn't mean." Caroline leaned closer, her voice a low, controlled whisper. You never think about the consequences, do you? Every smile, every touch, every stolen moment, it all comes at a cost. And now you're paying it. I've made sure of that, but I'm giving you one choice. Emily froze. Choice. Yes, Caroline said, calm as ice. You can try to repair what's left of your life or keep hiding and lose everything. I won't stop you from trying, but understand this. Your world is fragile now. Just as mine was shattered, I've rebuilt mine and I won't let anyone break it again. Emily nodded, silence swallowing her. Caroline left the restaurant feeling lighter than she had in months. She had reclaimed her control, and the fear in Emily's eyes was proof that justice of a sort had been delivered. But Noah, he was the final storm. Caroline's next move would be swift, devastating, and irreversible. She had saved the best for last. Noah returned home that evening, oblivious to the storm gathering just beyond his awareness. Caroline greeted him with a smile, warm and unassuming. Inside, her mind was razor-sharp. The evidence she had collected, the photos, the messages, the tracking, was already on its way to his firm. Every contact, every detail meticulously laid out to ensure maximum impact. She poured him a drink. Long day, she asked sweetly. Yeah, stressful, he replied, leaning back. I can't wait for the weekend. Caroline laughed softly, almost flirtatiously. We'll see, some things can't wait. That night, she sent the final anonymous package to his firm. She knew it would be read first thing in the morning. Then she waited. The hours crawled by, but Caroline didn't sleep. She reviewed every detail of her plan one last time, the satisfaction of impending justice coursing through her. By morning, the storm hit. Noah's phone rang endlessly. Partners demanded meetings, clients questioned contracts, colleagues whispered and avoided him. His reputation, built over years, collapsed within hours. Emails flew like fire, each one another hammer blow. When he returned home that evening, exhausted, beaten, defeated, Caroline met him with serene composure. You wanted to be with Emily, she said softly. You wanted secrets, lies, and betrayal. Well, secrets have consequences. Noah stared at her, confusion, fear, and realization colliding in his eyes. Anna, what? You didn't just betray me, Caroline said, cutting him off. You betrayed yourself. Your career, your integrity, your so-called love for Emily, it's all gone. And you brought it upon yourself. Noah's shoulders slumped. The man who once commanded admiration, respect, and love was reduced to trembling shame. Then she turned to Emily, who had quietly entered the room, guilt and fear painted across her face. You had your choices, Caroline said, voice firm but measured. You could have stopped this, but now your world is fractured. Learn from it, grow from it, or continue to lose everything. Emily's lips quivered, tears spilling. Anna, Caroline held up a hand. No more words. I've heard enough lies. It's time for the truth to be felt. And in that room, the air thick with tension, Caroline finally allowed herself a deep breath. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but the fire had cooled into strength. She had destroyed the lies, revealed the truth, and reclaimed her power. Over the following weeks, life slowly returned to a new normal. Noah faced consequences at work he could never undo. Emily worked to rebuild her reputation, humbled by the sharp lessons of deceit. And Caroline? She focused on herself, her children, and her life rebuilt from the ashes. She was stronger, wiser, and finally at peace. One evening, as she watched her children play in the garden, Caroline whispered to herself, I survived the betrayal, I fought the lies, and I won, not by revenge alone, but by refusing to be broken. Her heart, once shattered, now beat with fierce independence. Love, trust, and family could never again be taken lightly. She had learned that pain was temporary, but strength, courage, and self-respect were forever. The past was behind her. The future, bright, unshakable, and entirely her own, lay ahead.